Hey up, me duck. It's Links Live's Natters time, where your stories come alive. From the fens to the coast. So grab a cuppa and relax with your go-to podcast for unique Lincolnshire stories.
Hello and welcome back to Links Live's Natters. Here at Links Live's Natters, we love telling the stories that show Lincolnshire isn't just proud of its heritage, it's going to be proud of shaping its future. Today we're joined by Simon Sheehan, CEO and co-founder of The Right Course, the charity he launched alongside Fred Sirieix, transforming prison staff restaurants into industry standard training environments. And one of the places this work has truly taken root is right here in Lincolnshire at HMP Lincoln. Welcome, Simon.
Good morning. Very nice to meet you, Shelley.
Thank you very much for joining us. So if I just get you to tell us who you are and what you do.
So I am the CEO of The Right Course, which is a registered charity. And as you say, I set this up with Fred Sirieix back into 2020. We were running it as a pilot previously, and I've known Fred for probably over 20 years, pre his days on TV, and he's always been committed to hospitality specifically because he's very passionate about that, but also about giving back to the community. So I worked with him on a number of projects because my background is working in charities. So we were able to set up a few initiatives about getting young people into employment in the hospitality industry specifically. Yeah. And then we did a visit to a local prison, and we came up with the idea of setting up these training restaurants.
Yeah, what was the moment that made you think this model of hospitality-led rehabilitation could really work?
I think, we'd seen the benefit of hospitality, and it's a great industry to get involved with. Anybody can, with the right attitude and commitment, can really have a successful career, which can take you all over the world. And I think we've seen the benefit when we were working. I used to work for the Hilton Foundation, so that's where I came across Fred. So we were doing some employment work with NEETs, essentially, as they were termed at the time. And so we went into a prison just part of the visit, and we saw the restaurant space, and it was just really underutilized. And Fred's extremely passionate about the power of hospitality, and obviously running his own teams as well, he's seen people develop, so he knows the impact it can have. So we just thought, actually, well, why can we not make this space both an environment that staff want to come and spend their hard-earned money, but also that learners can come in and actually learn a skill which is practical, and it will lead to employment. It genuinely will.
Yeah, what is it about a restaurant environment that builds skills, but, confidence and discipline? What is it about hospitality that really builds it?
Well, I think, for a good hospitality, it has to be a well-oiled machine. There are processes and standards that you have to maintain, and you have to do it consistently. And that's a really good discipline for a lot of people to follow. But also, it's also about creating and caring for others, and creating an atmosphere and an experience. And that sort of empathy is a useful skill for anybody to have. So I think the beauty about hospitality is you work as a team, you're supporters as a team, but you get the satisfaction as well from making people enjoy themselves and have a wonderful time. And I think that's where all these different parts come together and actually can have a real impact, especially on the learners that we work with, where they maybe have not had that support structure, maybe have not also had that discipline of procedures and working, but also that satisfaction of going, well done, you've done it, and seeing instant gratification from a customer who has enjoyed the meal that you've prepared.
Yeah, because there's a lot of satisfaction, when you create something, isn't it? Because I always think it's like building a house in hospitality. You've got to get all your food together, your ingredients, and it's about those teams coming together to make that end product, isn't it?
Yeah, and communication is key. Everybody has to play their part. There's a responsibility for making it all work well, and if it falls apart in certain places, then you quickly see when service is not quite as smooth as you would want it to be. But all those, it's a supporting environment. I mean, that's the important thing. We have fantastic tutors which really do go above and beyond to support our learners, not only just learning the skills, but also just learning things about themselves and interacting with their team members, and also customers who can be, customers can be very forthright in what they like and don't like. And you have to be able to take that, not in a personal way. And that's a really valuable skill, especially if you've come from a perspective where you're on the defensive. And I can understand if you're currently in prison, then you probably are on guard. So all these things add up to really getting someone ready for employment when they come out. And that's the other part of our role, is not just running the restaurant, but helping them through the gate and actually into employment, so they're not just abandoned as soon as they get released. Because trying to rebuild your life in the best of circumstances, even with the support network, is really hard. Society, you carry around a label, unfortunately, for a long period of time. So you really need that help to just rebuild your life, because actually it's the benefit for all of us. The benefit for people not reoffending, not creating more victims, not impacting on society.
Yeah. What made you come to Lincoln? What made you come to sort of HMP Lincoln? Because it's one of your flagship restaurants now, isn't it?
It is. They're a fantastic team at HMP Lincoln, really dedicated staff working at the prison. And they reached out to us, actually, because they saw the work that we've been doing at our other sites. And they reached out to come and have a look at their staff restaurant. And actually, they didn't have a dedicated space. They only had a space within their visits hall. So it was very much a slightly different departure for us, where it wasn't just a dedicated space for staff. So, and it's a small kitchen. And if you ask a chef what do you want in their kitchen,
massive. They want
your arm for a very, very big space. But this is very tiny. But they make some amazing food. And I think the added benefit of this is because they not only look after staff during the week, they also cater for visits. So when you've got families coming in,
that's interesting.
They can then be served also by the prisoners who are working there, and also eat in the restaurant area, which is a sectioned off part. But those other prisoners have to earn that to actually get that as a privilege to go in there. So there's a great incentive which ripples out across the prison, because we had, anecdotally, we heard one mother who was visiting her son was like, well, why are we not allowed to eat over there? And was told that they had to get the privilege. So she gave him the encouragement, as only a mother can, of like, oh, well, I want to eat over there the next time. So that's a really good thing about hospitality, that wider thing of actually those other prisoners who are coming in and eating in that space get to have a normal environment and sit down and have a meal and share a meal with their family. And that's really important for maintaining family bonds, because yes, they're personally incarcerated in prison, but that effect on the family is massive.
Absolutely massive.
That generational crime which can potentially happen, or just that network of support, then you have to have some sort of normality of a relationship as when you can, whilst you're serving your sentence. So that's why the space is really important. Beyond just our learners, it's having a much bigger impact.
How do they get picked to go in the restaurant? Is it sort of like, do the tutors look out for people within the environment, or do people volunteer to do it?
It's a mixture of both, to be honest. I think once we've set up the restaurant, word of mouth quickly spreads, because it is a privileged environment to work in, because you are given a responsibility. You are working 5 days a week, so you do spend your time learning something and contributing. So obviously, it is much better for them rather than being locked up in the cells, or maybe they have an education pathway they want to do that, which is great. So they do volunteer. The word of mouth goes around the prison, because obviously then we're proving that it's leading into jobs. It's not just a course for the sake of it. Actually, a lot of our people, our learners, when they graduate, we're supporting them into work. So we're getting anything from 60% of those who start are getting into work when they leave. Those who remain in contact after they leave, we're getting about 80 to 90%.
That's amazing, Simon.
You just have to make sure that they keep in contact when they get released. But from the prison perspective, they are really instrumental in allowing us to operate in this space and supporting it, and even the staff just coming and spending their money.
To open the restaurant, it must have been amazing, on your very first one.
Yeah, it was a fantastic achievement. Slightly with a lot of trepidation of what have we done?
What have we done?
What have we let ourselves in for? But and also just being aware of we were coming from a perspective of being able to support young people from where we were, previous work that we'd done, and hospitality, because obviously Fred is an expert in that area. So we had that expertise in there, but working in a prison, we were complete novices, and we did openly admit to that. So there was a huge learning curve of, okay, well, what should we do? What can we do? Why is this happening? Why are these systems there? So I'm sure we pushed a few envelopes to questioning why, which I think was good, because I think there's also settling for Fred is very high on having high expectations of our learners, and because he wants them to be the best of the best and to succeed when they come out, and also just that he wants hospitality to be the best it can be. It doesn't matter whether you're serving a jacket potato or some Michelin star meal. Yes, there's different cooking styles, but especially from a service perspective, which obviously Fred's a champion of front of house, it's about how you serve it, how you make people feel. So that expectation of standards was something that we were bringing in, and doing that in a prison environment, going, no, why shouldn't you have a nice environment to go have your lunch? You have an extremely stressful job, which I personally wouldn't be able to do. But they work really hard in very underappreciated circumstances from all sides. So to give them the space where they can come and have a nice meal, relax, talk to their colleagues, do what everybody does on their lunch break, but in an environment where they're still in the work environment, it's still a prison. So and they were also able then to see our learners in a slightly different light, because they were interacting on a human level of talking to them, serving them food, having that banter when people come to the table that hospitality people do.
Not just talking to them through a slot on their cell doors.
Exactly. And I think, that there's always that point of, going to prison is a punishment. It's huge. And I think people can really underestimate it if you have a certain slant of what it is like to be locked up in prison. Yes, you have a bed. Yes, you have you are fed. Yes, you have a limited TV that you have access to, but that's loss of sense of freedom, that control that you give up because you're being confined, but also just that the impact on your life, it's huge, and that's really a lot of punishment. So unless we want people to come out worse than they went in, we really need to work with them, to rehabilitate them, to give them different options, to give them a different mindset.
Yeah, because I think that's always the worry, Simon, is families are worried is sort of like somebody's done a lesser crime. They're going into a prison environment and think, well, are they going to come out worse off? Are they going to meet other people and stuff? And it's always that worry for a family member about somebody being inside, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, to survive a prison environment, the people have their hackles up. They are very protective of themselves. Everybody's walking around like I'm the big I am, because you don't want to show weakness and vulnerability. And that's not a great mindset to be.
No.
I can understand it's a survival instinct, but to actually get out of that, to actually look at the
so to see the sort of like the prisoners interacting, going back to what we were saying, with the prison staff is amazing. They can see these people's personalities and stuff, and creating the meals and stuff is brilliant for the the prison staff to see.
Yeah, and I think what we see is that when our regular customers as such, when they come in, they're celebrating the success of those learners, and you can see them change when they first start on the course. A lot of them don't make eye contact. They don't want to. Everybody's got the bravado. I'm really the strong man, but yet you won't go over to a table and take an order. You're scared to go and ask. So how much of a big man are you in this scenario? So, but you see that their confidence just grows, and
amazing.
that's really powerful. Even if they don't go into hospitality at the end, that is a transferable skill that when they come out, they can go walk. They feel a bit more confident to walk into a job, to articulate what they want and to work in
Yeah,
the team.
communication's a big one though, isn't it? People don't know how to communicate with people sometimes, do they? Sort of like some people grunt and some people just don't know how to communicate properly. So that's amazing, Simon.
Yeah, and we've all experienced probably good and bad service, and we know, yes, and we all have bad days, and I can appreciate that. But somebody looking you in the eye, smiling when you walk into the room, and going, "Welcome to the restaurant," that
That's
makes
a big
everybody's day
thing.
pleasant. Yeah, it makes everybody's day pleasant, not just you as a staff member or you as
Yeah, it makes you feel like a VIP in the room, Simon. You sort of, hello, welcome
yeah.
HMP. I'm trying to think. Then Bertie's, it's Bertie's, isn't it? Welcome to. Do they actually have
Bertie, yes,
Do
yeah.
they actually have a script, Simon? Because I'm thinking about, and I won't mention the TV show, but I think you know which one I'm going to pick up on. There was a TV recently on a certain channel, and this particular chef was training his staff, and they have a script as soon as somebody walks through the door. And I think we both know who we're talking about. Might be a friend of Fred's.
I don't know what you're talking
No,
about. Yes.
no. But they had a script, didn't they? That particular chef, he gave them a script, like how to welcome people into the restaurant. And is that how the learners learn as well? They have particular phrases they have to use.
We do. I mean, we do have a quite a scope, a process of work that everybody goes through. But then there's also a point of not making it robotic. It has to feel genuine.
Yes.
So there's a point where, yes, you get into the routine of welcoming people and eye contact and making sure that you're keeping an eye on the restaurant. I mean, that's a skill that is developed over time, that you are constantly scanning the room. And I'm sure we've all been in a restaurant where we're trying to get a waiter's attention. So have that a skill where you're looking around and preempting that maybe a customer needs something, or the table needs clearing, or we need to be on top of clearing the space and preparing it for the next customer. All of those things of just keeping an eye on it rather than just standing there waiting for something to happen. You have to be proactive. And those are the different things that we have. And so, yeah, we do have a sort of a manual that all our learners go through. But it is all about sort of bringing out their personality. We don't want to. We're not in the industry of creating robots. We want people to bring their personality, because that's when it's genuine. And that's when
I think that's when you get the feedback as well, because a lot of people that go into the restaurants and stuff can tell genuine people. I know when we've been into restaurants and stuff like that, and when somebody makes you feel really special, they pull your chair out, and I'm like, oh wow, thank you. They've just pulled the chair out, just something like that. Those little touches, Simon, really make the experience, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, we've based it on Fred did an art of service, and because obviously front of house is very much his passion, and it's unusual in the hospitality industry because everybody obviously talks about celebrity chefs and well-known chefs because it's a very practical thing, but I think sometimes the front of house element is overlooked, but actually that's our interaction when we go to any hospitality outlet. We interact with front of house. We don't, unless we know them or we're lucky that the chef comes out, you never see them. So actually your experience, even though they're serving the food, is all about how the front of house staff make you feel appreciated, not just throwing food at you and taking your
Or
money.
standing literally at the side of you. And I get quite like when people stood literally sort of watching your every move. And I was sort of like, I didn't really like that, when there's somebody just stood there watching you and stuff like that. That's my only personal quibble, really.
Yeah, but it's about, I think that, we have in this country developing a passion for hospitality, because it is an industry that can take you all over the world, essentially.
Cruise
and I think
ships, hotels, everywhere, isn't it?
Exactly. Or right in your own local town. And that's perfectly fine if that's what you want to do. But you can then be part of that community. And so I think that's where the hospitality really comes in. And a lot of although we get learners who want to work in there, and some of it might just be because they want to be out of the cell and be doing something. But our role is not only just to teach them the skills of hospitality, and we do that through our education partners like People Plus and Novus, but it's about the possibility and changing their aspiration to go, look, you've maybe never considered this, or you've considered that hospitality is only about shoveling chips in a well-known high street chain
Yes.
restaurant. But actually, it's so much more than that.
It
You know,
is.
we have fantastic employment partners, from Marston's, Green King, Hilton especially, and you know, when you're talking about hotels, it's not just, you know, front of house and working or cashiering. There's so many roles within that industry that people don't necessarily think about. It's a whole business in itself. So to be able to share those things, and we work a lot with our employers to come in and meet our learners and work alongside and do a masterclass or work on the shift, and actually just breaking down those barriers.
If you're building a business, replying to emails, thinking about dinner and still feeling behind, you're not doing it wrong. You're just running a business like it's an emergency. The Slow Businesswoman is for women who want success without the stress. A calmer way to grow. A smarter way to work. The Slow Businesswoman. Work smarter, stand out, succeed. Find out more at theslowbusinesswoman.com.
How do you get an employer on board of that stature and then say, do you know what? Come and talk to my learners. Come within this environment and see what we're doing.
I mean, Green King have been fantastic, and they were already in this space when we started. So yeah, other pub chains are available, and when we do work with, I mean, Marston's have been equally as fantastic, and they really are engaged genuinely in this space of looking at how they can give opportunities to people who've been in prison at some point. So I think I think a lot of it is, yes, they naturally have a concern for their business of what are we doing, and we're fortunate that we're able to take them in and just start that process. And part of our role is to go, well, we will be that I suppose contractor, mentor, support system in a way for them and our learners, so that we're an intermediate between them. So that those job placements are, they know the individual who's going in, because we've worked with them over the course of the work. We've got their background. We know what environment would work best for them in future employment. So we're able to give much more information and support to that employer to say, this is the whole view of this potential employee, rather than just someone coming off the streets with a CV and you don't know how much is written by AI on their CV, or it's just
AI.
Right. And like I say, hospitality is about people. So actually, you need to know people. So I think that's
coming
with the employers to get them involved. They help inspire our learners, but also it breaks down the barriers where then our learners see that actually an employer is genuinely engaged and has a job opportunity, and then
that's amazing, you know, that the employers are engaged and stuff, because this is a very what's the word I want to say, sort of critical environment, really, because people are very sort of like, oh, you shouldn't take them on, they'll do this again, and they might commit this crime again. But what I think people don't realise is a lot of people within those environments and stuff want to change. They want the opportunities to do this, don't they? They just sort of like you said earlier, they need somebody behind them to say, you can do this. You can really do this. And one of the things you mentioned when I was talking to you over email was that, you know, the families and what they tell the children's one day, you know, this has happened to me and this is what I do now. And I know it's one of the things that's most sort of powerful in people's testimonies when you say about it, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of our learners have families, and when those sort of anecdotal stories when you're talking to them, when they're sort of saying, "Well, I've never made a meal for my children, and I'd be able to go back and do this," and that's not what we planned within the program, but that is so powerful in their life to give them that skill and that opportunity, and that will, you know, resonates down into generations. You know, we all have things in our childhood and our past that we remember, and it's those those things, and sometimes they're really small, but they
It's
mean
like those
something.
old traditional recipes. I know we're diversing a bit, so it's like, when like I was little, it's always my mum's Yorkshire puddings because I have relatives up in Yorkshire, and it's like those little things, isn't it? Like, wow, I can
Yeah.
make proper Yorkshire puddings, but somebody close to me who's actually on this call makes brilliant Yorkshire puddings, and he lets me know that his Yorkshire puddings are really good. But it's just, it's just those little things, isn't it? They're able to pass on.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of our learners come and bring their family recipes into the kitchen, and
Oh
they go on as
wow.
specials. So that's when they're really engaged, and they can show something that they know and be proud of it, and obviously that it has a story behind it, and that's what life is about. It's about those interactions and
Yeah. Have
being
you got a
human.
particular moment, when a learner's, without saying too much, is, a story that's really stayed with you? And sort of like somebody who's had a really sort of bad time within the prison service and they've gone up and they've gone to be one of your star learners sort of thing. Have you got a
I
particular
mean,
story?
yeah, there's several. I mean, I know that we had one learner who, and he was a young man, and as much as I like to think I am still, I'm definitely not. But he was. I mean, he was 20, and he said, "Oh, yeah, He divulged that he had a young family, and I was like, "Wow, okay, that's a lot at your age, but great." But he came from a traveling community. Didn't know when he went into prison, as it is still in his teens. He didn't know how to read or write,
That's quite
and
common within the
never had a
prison
job.
walls, isn't it? A lot of them,
Yeah,
a lot of the prison, they can't read or write, which
a lot,
sort of shocks
a
me a
lot of
little bit.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people have just never been diagnosed and identified as having additional needs, and then therefore has slipped through the
I
system,
think
or
people are
have been
embarrassed,
in a
Simon.
learning environment that has not been supportive. And I think that's where I think work going on this course, you can learn other skills. You're learning to read and write and using
Yeah.
practical bits and pieces, not in a classroom environment. And if in a classroom environment didn't work for you before, why do we assume that it's going to work when you're in prison? So I think we have to find different ways of learning, which is more appropriate for individuals that support them, because people learn in lots of different ways.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, back to the example. He was just that he'd used his time in prison to learn to get his English and maths, which was an incredible achievement alone. Anyway, and then he came into into the restaurant, and was just the life and soul of the front of house. He was just perfect.
So
He was
people
born
saw
to do
him
that.
change.
Yeah, you completely saw him change. He loved it. He loved, looking after our customers and just making their day better. And then we brought in an employer, and was just so keen, and he's
Oh,
just
that's amazing.
flying really. And I'm just really pleased for him.
I can see
Just
you
to,
smiling when you talk about this particular person as well. Sort of like what a great sense of, achievement, for the course, for yourself, and especially for him.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, look, it's all down to him and his resilience, and a lot of very dedicated people in the prison that supported him along the way and gave him that chance. But he embraced it, and at the moment he's moved on to another more open prison, so we're still in contact with him. He's working there within hospitality, and when he gets towards release, then we'll be working to place him in a job. So I think that's it's that continuity as well, that it's not just a project and everybody gets a certificate and disappears. We're about
Mm.
building that network, and we will support any of our graduates for as long as they want.
Yeah, because a
And
lot
it's
of
nice to
prisoners are just
come
literally
back.
released at the door with a tent and it's bye bye, isn't it? There's
Yes.
nothing. So this is amazing. This course is there. Do you think a sense of community helps challenge stigma and give people sort of like second chances? So, because there is a lot of stigma about people being in prison and stuff like that, isn't there? Or do you
Yeah.
think it
Yes.
makes it harder?
I mean, community is such a broad term, and there's lots of different communities around different things. But I think ultimately that most people, in my experience, are good. They will want to do something. Everybody can have a bad day or make bad decisions, both from our learners' perspective and from the wider community. So I think when you talk to the wider community, a lot of people will resonate to, yes, give people a chance. because they want to, and that's in most people's natures. And I think sometimes it can be as a bit of a knee-jerk reaction to go, oh no, don't. But when you meet people, it's like people on social media, everybody knee-jerks, reacts, and keyboard warrior. And
I think this is the day and age. It's so easy for somebody to sit behind a keyboard, isn't it?
Yes, but then actually, if they were talking to that person that they suddenly had to were venting at, it would be a very different situation. So I think that's where we have to break down barriers of just perception and understanding, and realizing that they're still people at the end of the day. Yes, they've made
bad mistakes.
Yeah, and they have been punished for it. And then but other than keep on punishing people, you have to give people another chance, because we've all made mistakes, not necessarily from a criminal perspective, but we've all made mistakes in our lives and learned from that and moved forward. And that's part of life, and we need to give other people that opportunity, and still have our own boundaries of what is acceptable and not. And actually, people respond to that. If it's a genuine,
because one of the things you're doing, you're making sure that the learners leave genuinely job ready, aren't you? You're making sure, like you've just said, that you stay in contact with people all the way through. So, you're literally with them 24/7. Well, not with them 24/7, but you're not just kicking them out at the gates going, okay, bye-bye. You're staying with them.
Yeah. And I mean, I think from a statutory perspective, there's limitations of what the staff that have been working with them inside can do. They're obviously not allowed to maintain contact for security reasons.
Yes.
But we're able, because we're a charity, we're able to start that conversation and relationship with them whilst they're in the course, and then continue that outside within the framework of, we will want to help you get into employment. We can signpost you to other help that you need. We can be that sounding board and that intermediary between you and employer. We're also, at times phoning them in the morning. Are you up and ready to go to your interview? Have you got enough on for your train ticket? All of those kind of things. Even if have you got something to wear? Especially when you first come to prison. You've got to go and work in a kitchen environment. You've got to be clean and well presented and have the right equipment. And if you haven't, how do you start? And you haven't got any money, so how do you get it? So those kind of interventions that we go, well, what are those barriers that are going to stop you getting employment and getting you to an interview to start and getting to that first payday, whether that's a week, a month, or whatever? Those are the barriers that are just the basics, which people don't necessarily think. It's not necessarily just about getting a job interview. How do you do all of those things, the practicalities of getting to a job and getting in front in a position that you can present yourself and show the skills that you've got, and
Have you and Fred got plans?
Fred has huge plans. He always has huge plans. He is very driven to make an impact, which is fantastic for us, because it does move us forward, but also open doors. And he's very, it's not for him. He's committed. He speaks to all of our graduates when they get out and they go start for jobs. He's not a remote figurehead in that sense. He's very.
I was going to say, because he could easily go, well, look, I'm Fred Sirieix and I've put my name to this, but. From what you're saying, he does more. He believes and he's passionate about what he does, doesn't he?
Yeah, and he goes in and visits the prisons and looks at, and he's very much, I'm not here as Fred, the
TV star.
He's here as Fred, the hospitality expert that knows how to run a restaurant, and why are you doing, this needs to be corrected, or this is how you can improve what you're doing. So, for him, it's about having our graduates go on and be somewhere and succeed. And that's
he's put his name to it, Simon, hasn't he? And Fred's quite well known, like you say, as front of house as well, because some of the restaurants he's worked at have been quite high profile, so he's put his name to it. So he wants things to be right, and obviously understands sometimes there are operational issues, aren't there?
Yeah, of course, and it's about having the skills to be able to adapt in any situation. But I think what is nice when you see Fred interact with any of our team in the restaurants, it's about how they can improve, and they're learning from an expert who's done it. He's not just talking from reading a book or he's doing it from years of experience of, this is how you do it, and just because it's been a high end restaurant doesn't mean that you shouldn't be doing it here within this prison environment, serving prison staff. It's about having expectations of yourself as well, that you can be the best and you can do this and you can really succeed. So it's very good.
Yeah. We mentioned just there about, expanding across the country and stuff, taking you out of Lincolnshire again. Have you got any big plans that you can mention that's happening? Because I know you've had a busy few months, haven't you, with some exciting opportunities that have happened.
Yeah, we're very fortunate that we've been given the opportunities about another 3 prisons, and we've managed to secure some funding to refurb these areas and get them set up. Because I think once you have the right environment, and we're always trying to mirror the high street as much as possible within a prison environment. So it's a space where staff want to come and spend their money, as I say, but also just an inspirational place where you've got the same procedures and practices that you would experience when you have a job. So you're doing it essentially, just happens to be within the 4 walls of the prison, but that expectation of you're working to specific recipes. There's an expectation in presentation every time. There's an expectation in service every time. And these are the systems that you would use, so that when you go into a job, you're like, okay, I've done this. I've got the experience. It takes out all of the unknown fear factor of it all. So I'm really, really excited that we're able to invest in 3 new prisons coming up. It's a bit of a tight deadline. I'm doing 3 at the same time. But everybody likes obviously cutting the ribbon in a proverbial ribbon and opening it. But I think the big bit is when you start seeing the learners working in that environment and they're coming through and start doing it. So although a lot of work at the moment is to get them ready and the builders are in certain places doing their thing, the real work will start once we have learners in there and they're excited to be there and they're learning on the job and we start.
What would an average day look like? Because obviously, the person would get up, they have their wash, and are they expected to be there at certain times of the day? And how much is classwork and how much is actually on the job training?
So all the learners will be ready at their cell door for their working day in the morning. So it depends on the regime, but it will be about 7:30, 8 o'clock being picked up. And I think that one of the nice things is actually that in most of our restaurants, our learners are waiting at the door to be taken, whereas
isn't that amazing? They're actually waiting. Yeah. You're not having to get them up. A lot of them are so excited about being there. They're sort of like, okay, I'm at the door. I'm ready.
Yeah, and that's that's an environment that our tutors have instilled, and they've made it that, and I'm extremely grateful for all of their hard work and commitment. So they've made it that actually they want to come to work, and then they're taken to the restaurant. There's obviously a morning briefing about what's going on that day, what particular specials, any VIPs coming in, the usual briefings that you would get in a restaurant. And then you're starting to prep for lunchtime, setting things up. There's a breakfast service as well, so that's always busy when staff are coming in and picking up a coffee, hopefully, and maybe a pastry that's been made. And then between. Then there's a slight lull where there's a lot of, that's when the education formal workbook bits and pieces can happen. So it's within that environment, but around service. So obviously they have to be ready for lunch and there's a rush because staff all have their lunch break within an hour and an hour and a half. So everybody turns up and they don't have long. And that sometimes they're taking it away because they want to go outside the gates, because that's the only time they can, have a cigarette if
fresh air,
or check their phone. So, those kind of things you have to be on it. So what we always want is a busy restaurant so that our learners get that experience of the rush of a busy service. Because it's real life, you can't be standing there going, well, we're waiting around for a day for someone to have one coffee. We want them to be places where it's busy and it's vibrant, because you need that buzz of working and being able to handle a slightly stressful situation, or the peaks and troughs of it, and being prepared for, we need to be ready for lunch because it's happening. So, and that satisfaction at the end of the day that, we've got through service and we've done it. You know,
Do
look,
they
look
still
what we've
use the
achieved.
terminology within the environment of like yes chef, yes chef? Is that in sort of like enthralled into them in that environment? It's like yes chef, or not so much?
Yes. That is there. But I would say that it's also, you know, we've all seen TV programs
That's
where,
where I was going
you
with
know,
that, because when you watch
no,
the
yes, but
TV
it's not.
programs,
Yeah, but it's not. And I think that even the hospitality industry is changing. You know, that whole, that yes, there is a difference between, for someone who's running the being the head chef and running the kitchen. However, there is also a respect that everybody's
yeah,
treated and talked to appropriately. So that is definitely not something that's happening in our restaurants. And you can't anyway, because I think you can't expect someone who's learning and has other issues that you can
that's
speak to
good
people
that we
like that.
address that.
We wouldn't want to be. I personally wouldn't want it to be spoken to that. So why would I expect anybody else to do that? So it's very much about respect and
That's good.
being sensitive, because you still are in a prison environment, that everybody is heard. And yes, there are processes to follow.
That's
But
where I was
there
going with that.
yeah, but there is a way of talking to people that actually brings the best out of them, rather than gets into a sticky situation.
Yeah, if there's a hospitality business in Lincolnshire listening to this right now, how could they get involved? You know, how can they get involved with your course, or if they want to even take on a person from the prison? How can they do this?
We would love to hear from them. I mean, we're always looking for more and more hospitality industries, because we're not saying, look, we're expecting you to take 20, 30, 40, 50, you know, of our graduates at any one time. We're aware that actually it's about somebody coming and slotting into your team and adding value to your business. So we need that network of local employers to be ready as and when our graduates come out, and not everybody will be released into Lincoln. Obviously, it's got a wider catchment area. So we're looking for a wide spread of different hospitality outlets, which can be a cafe, it could be a pub environment, could be a hotel, bed and breakfast, could be, I mean, a concession in an entertainment space or in a cinema, whatever. Because everybody we're driven by our graduates' passion. It's their career. It's not ours. We're not just going to place them just because so that we can tick off that they got a job. It's where they want to work and where they're going to feel comfortable and where they're going to flourish.
It's brilliant that Lincolnshire is playing such an important role in the story. You know, it makes us incredibly proud that, like you say, you guys have actually come to Lincoln. And like I was just saying, it's like people, where's Lincoln? Where's Lincolnshire? A lot of people just know a certain known city, place called Skegness. When you say Lincolnshire, everybody goes Skegness. Well, no, there's so much more to Lincolnshire, and this is why I like to promote it, because there's so much more here. If you'd like to learn more about the Right Course, support the work, or explore how your hospitality business could get involved, we'll pop all the details on our social media channels. And if you joined this conversation and want to watch or listen to the full episode, head over to our website at linkslivesnatters.com, or you can find us wherever you get your podcast. Just search Links Lives Natters. As always, a huge thank you to my brilliant tech team who's on this call as well. And without him, who does the editing, I wouldn't be as good as I am. And he makes sure the sound, the cameras and everything in between runs smoothly so these important conversations can be shared. And to our listeners, keep supporting local. Keep having those conversations that matter. And we'll see you next time on the next episode of Links Lives Natters. Thank you once again, Simon.
Thank you.